I believe that we have a very exciting topic today, and we have already heard the term China by this morning, and already a few brands like Xiaomi, Baidu, Tencent, but there's much more besides. And personally also, I really like Xiaomi, for example. It's like great products, great quality. I would say similar features compared to the global brands, but pricing adapted to the Chinese market. But I guess that many people still insisting that Chinese products are cheap and low quality copies. But I think also that's true. These perceptions may represent a portion of the Chinese market, but China is rising up. So China is rising up in terms of speed, in terms of growth, but also, and most significantly, in innovation. And China is innovating much faster, probably, than you can imagine. So our president, Xi Jinping, outlined that a vision that China will become a global leader in political, military, economic, and environmental issues, I think, within the next 3 decades. And what I would like to do today is, because we have 4 very amazing speakers here, is hopefully to share and provide a new, maybe a Chinese perspective on the topics, and also to evaluate the innovation that is going on in China by today and also by tomorrow. And second, what kind of new opportunities there are in terms of Chinese-German collaboration in innovation. So please, a big applause to the 4 speakers. So maybe we do it this time a little bit different. So I'm not reading a long profile of your background, but maybe you can share your background, maybe also your relevance to this topic, innovation in China, very briefly to the audience. So Yuanyuan, maybe you would like to start?
Hello, everyone. My name is Yuanyuan Gao. I was challenged by my name because people ask me here, is it because China is short of names so that you have double yuan? Or the second challenge is that, are you rich because your name is on the Chinese currency, which is true. But my parents didn't name me for that because they want me to have an enriched life, so the meaning has to enrich life. So here I am after 17 years in Beijing, and also the last 4 years based in Beijing and Shanghai. And then last year I moved myself for Germany, based in Hamburg now. So my whole background in my whole career life in China in the past 17 years is in FMCG. So to be very honest, I've never been a tech person. So I'm really looking forward to see what I can share and contribute to you guys as the leading tech experts in the European or German market.
Cool, thank you. Xiaoxi?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here, Xin. My name is Xiaoxi Liu. Now I'm working as a country manager for Greater China, and I would say one of the best tech startup in Germany, which is called Navis. I'm very proud of that. And I'm doing exactly the job that pushing the new technology from Germany to the Chinese market. I think in the period of time which I work for Navis in in China, I really gathered a lot of insight how to collaborate between China and Germany, and what is real different between how we innovate. From my personal background, I normally say I was made in China and special equipped in Austria, and now running on the German Autobahn. So it actually means I was born, raised, and educated in China, and also work in Chinese automotive industry. And then I moved to Austria for my master and German, learning German. Afterwards, again, I work as management consulting, but mainly for German automotive OEMs for the past 5 years. So at the end of last year, or actually middle of last year, I saw it was too traditional. So I'm going to do something more innovative. I'm also going to go back to my own culture and to use some of my skills which I have never been used as a management consultant. Therefore, I choose to push a very fantastic technology from Germany to the Chinese market. So I hope I can give you some insight about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas?
Yeah, so I'm now the first non-Chinese, so I need to make a better pitch. What is my relation with China? In 2007, I made an interesting move in my then student life. I wanted to go from a very small country, from Austria, to a very big one. I wanted to go to the States, but I ended up in China. And that somehow clicked with me. I was fascinated by China in 2007 already. But back then, it was totally different than what you see today. To 2007, 1 year in China, 2009, another year, then 2013, another time, and 2015, another time. So I was always in between Germany and China. I'm a computer scientist by training, but I was also an engagement manager at McKinsey & Company, and I always worked on projects that had something related with China. And since half a year ago, I tried to help a Munich startup, which is called University for Industry, which is an online learning platform for digitization topics, to bring their product to the Chinese market. Yeah, that's me.
Cool. Andreas?
Yeah, thank you so much. Andreas Hube. I'm working for a small 45-year-old German software startup, SAP. But I'm actually not a technician as well either, basically. And I'm not a Waldorfian, as we say. So I didn't start actually my career in Germany. I actually started my career in China a little bit longer ago. I was 1997, the first intern at SAP China. So basically, since then, I stuck with SAP China, and 5 years ago came back from China to Germany to actually build up what I'm running now. It's called the China Liaison Office, which is not your typical China headquarter China desk, but it's really more embassy of SAP China in Germany. So my focus is really on China. My heart basically in this way goes with the China organization, and in this way I'm trying to basically see on government and corporate level, basically, how can we basically build better bridges and also drive new topics, and for sure also try to convey the message what's basically in our eyes happening in China and what we're doing there with our partners. So very keen to share. Thanks.
Thank you, Andreas. And I also would like to start with you because I can remember a quote of you, I think already 5+ years ago. That time you said, innovation is coming from China in future. From your experiences, how innovative is China today? And also in the second part, maybe tomorrow.
I don't know, did I ever say this? No, but, but for sure. Let's assume I said this. No, but I'm standing to this. So basically, I think it's always for sure the question, how do you really define innovation? And I know there are many people who say basically, even what China is doing now, if you talk about the 4 key new innovations, or like the high-speed train, the e-payment, all the stuff, basically, you might say that it's not completely new, it's just applied. But however, I need to say that there's still really a lot of innovation coming, and basically I'm true believer of that. Actually, the environment which you have in China is kind of ideal, especially in the context of innovations in the digital age. Let's put it like this. Last but not least, and don't take me wrong here, not taking sides with the government, but you have basically an environment where also the government is very much enforcing almost basically the digitalization, or basically the usage of digitalization. You have the aspect which was mentioned also before, that you have massive data you can use, and basically also have a kind of entrepreneur's mindset. You know, always this old example about crossing a river, right? We Germans basically would just find the right angle to really cross a river with a perfect jump and calculate for years. The Chinese just go step by step, stone by stone, basically trial and error. And this is also kind of where the Chinese government is kind of looking at. They basically let things, as it was also mentioned earlier, just let people try out, and then they come basically with regulations and forms to pull things potentially back or put on the strongest players. And from an environment perspective, it's very interesting, and I think a very good nurturing ground. And again, they're very smart people and great ideas. Maybe we can talk about this later. And I think we have some examples here as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thomas, you want to follow up?
Yeah, maybe I just build on what you just said. In 2007, I had the feeling that everybody that graduated from a Chinese university, like an engineer, wanted to go to work for the foreign brands. Back then, I was working for Siemens in 19. And it was like really like it was not a problem to find engineers there. But right now, like 10 years later, it's really getting difficult for foreign corporates to find the real good talents from the universities. Because in the meantime, in these 10 years, so many interesting Chinese brands, interesting Chinese tech startups came across, like all this. What we hear here is like WeChat, Alibaba, but there are 100 or 200, 300 companies more, and it's really getting tough to get in the great talents. And also in 2007, I had the feeling that people there, these very good students from the universities, and China is very competitive with the university system. So if you're good in China in a university, you really have proven that you are better than like 95% of everybody else that goes to university in China. Everybody wanted to go to the US, and they wanted to build a career there. But right now what you see is people go to the US still for education, for the network. But once they graduate, they come back to China because there's this opportunity, there is also this funding available, there is a government that is supporting you. And there is some kind of like, you can try things. And the governments will step in with a regulation, but only after something happened. So there's a freedom that you can try and you can do something. And the second point, I think, is that China, maybe if you say, okay, the innovation coming out from China, WeChat, cashless payments is everywhere now. It's not an innovation. We have seen it before, yada, yada, yada. But I think what China is very good at is really like executing that thing. Because what is an innovation worth if it's not like executed, if it's not like impacting everybody's life? I think that is something that we can learn from China, like how the things are then executed. So I think China is really good at executing this digital transformation. This is where we are here in Germany, maybe a little bit too conservative sometimes, but in China it would just be pushed through. It has good and bad sides. That would be my take on it.
Okay, yeah, maybe later we will come back to this the executing part. Yuanyuan, do you want to share some insights on this topic?
Yeah, I think I might take myself, my daily life as an example, just to tell you. But before I comment on or build on, I have a question to the floor. Like, how many of you have visited Beijing or Shanghai in the past 3 years? Oh my God! Thank you. So impressed. It's more than what I have thought. So maybe later or whenever you feel convenient, or I would be love to share just my own story as a very, still fresh. I just moved into Hamburg last May, and so non-tech person, tech problem. So yeah, I would love to tell you just some real story of my own life with the help of my mobile. So maybe for those of you who have visited the two leading digital cities with the quite leading smart life in China. You probably know what I'm talking about. For those who haven't, this may probably help you to see where the differences are and where the possible opportunities are if the macro environment is not very supportive with I know the German rules in my past 1 year experience in Germany. So I think there is a big market and a big supportive environment where you can turn your dream into reality with easier access.
Can you maybe share just maybe one example? So it's like coming to Germany, right, from China. What do you think maybe is how do you evaluate the innovation performance or like the innovation level in China than compared to here?
Again, I'm not tech person, but 3 or 4 years ago, that's why I asked whether you visited China. German Industry 4.0, which we call in China the literal translation, the fourth industrial revolution, was a big topic. Big companies, of course, like as big as Lufthansa or SAP and even the Chinese counterparts in China are all discussing what we can learn from the German technology. So I think German today is still very leading, and I get involved with the startups, many techs in Hamburg as well, and I'm very impressed by how leading they are in technology-wise. But I feel like, wow, I was also a little bit frustrated to see how the system can limit the space for you to take the ideas into reality. Well, unlike Germany in this as a contrast, China, I would say, just as Xin introduced just now in the very beginning, that the whole macro society environment and the political environment policy, which leads to the convenient fundraising support to the startups, are creating a huge cubrator for the whole startup companies in China. So about the tech innovation, I don't think that there are too many differences between the two countries, but I do see that the environment to turn innovation ideas into reality is quite different in China.
So we just heard a lot about the macroeconomic situation, and what exactly is the difference between German government and our policy? Before, everybody may have learned we have the planned economy. Well, now we still kind of have this kind of planned economy, but you know, everything have is up and down side. Because we mentioned, and I think every single of us just mentioned our macroeconomic policy, our government, how they push the innovation forward. I can give you some brief example. So, Chinese government is, as the whole Chinese society is not very precise. We say some big titles, what we want to drive for. So we look up, the government have some researchers, collaborate with universities, research institute, high-tech leads companies. They observe the world. What are the next big trends? And then our government decide, okay, we go for AI. Now we go for collaboration with Industry 4.0 with Germany. Those are the government initiatives, but never so detailed out, as Dr. Reinbacher just mentioned. And every companies, investors, universities, every single parties, stakeholders involved in the innovation, we all look to our 5 years plan. We all look to our policies of the government. And even the policy at the beginning is just several words. And what the people, investors, companies, universities do, if our government says, we will push AI, the government what will do is they will set up big funds, big initiatives, tax cut, a lot of international events, and local policies to make that happen. What the universities do, they got funds from private investors, they got from government, and they start researching. And they start researching not only for the technology, but how to put existing scientific result into reality, how to turn it into profit. And what the company does are also, they're looking for AI and how we can apply them and further research them and to bring them to the reality. And also, we have like this, every policy have its steps. Step one, we want to be in the top layer of AI technology into 2020. And in 2025, we want to have our base technology for AI. In the third 2030, we want to have what and what. So every stakeholders, investors, universities, students, companies, startups, they all look into the same direction. And therefore, all the capitals, all the talented are educated, and all the companies are hiring, getting these capitals and getting this talent, working in the one direction. That's how China innovate nowadays, with our government leading. I mean, you may always argue in Europe if our government is good or not. But for the innovation, I think it is good, because we also mentioned try and error. Because we are not that precise, there are a lot of space and time to allow you to make mistakes. And the customers and the end customers say, actually, we don't care. We don't need a perfect product to bring to the market 3 years later. We want something already pushed out to the market 3 months later. So I always think, now I work in my company, I always tell my company, please have sense of urgency, please. 1 month in China is 1 year in Germany. If you do not react fast, we're losing the market. It will eventually be one of the biggest market for every single company here. So if we do not act fast, and if we do not have all the incentives and everybody working in the right direction, the one direction, I don't know, let's see in 10 years, who will drive the innovation in the world?
Yeah, if I just made comment, I mean, I would agree, and for sure what I'm saying from a corporate perspective, so we don't talk about any other kind of political or whatever ideas, but simply from this point, and you're right, actually, this is exactly what we also see. If you take the example of Industry 4.0, I mean, one of my fun parts of the job is for sure that we host a lot of Chinese delegations. I think we have around 70 alone last year, and I can tell you every single one of those, be it coming to Waldorf, be it coming to Berlin, whatever, where government, companies, they all talk about Industry 4.0. They all want to understand Industry 4.0. But the thing is, and this is why I want to get to, in terms of also, I think this panel is also a little bit where are the opportunities, basically, maybe for you as businesses or for us as kind of German engineering country in this way, basically they come with the idea and say, like, what do I have to do to become Industry 4.0? Right? Where am I now? Can you tell me whether I'm Industry 3.5 or whatever? And basically, I think there's an opportunity that we actually can say, basically, it's actually the wrong question, because Industry 4.0 is a methodology, basically. It's made possible due to technology advancements and so on and so on. But basically, the question is, what can you do with this, and where does it take you? Where is the business value you basically can create out of this? And this is something, I wouldn't say, which is, let's put it like this, still in development in the understanding in China. And this is where, like, German companies, German ideas, German innovators basically can very much help on the business process reengineering, on the whole idea of a concept. Same with artificial intelligence. I mean, China has massive data, but also many people, many experts say basically the whole thinking behind algorithm, for sure, there are still advantages we might have, the US might have in this, or let's put it like this, possibilities for cooperation. So fully agree, but I think it sounds a bit scary, basically, for people who are not involved in this, but there's, I think, still a lot of room for opportunity to collaborate.
Yeah, thank you. So we have heard that I think speed is different. Also in China, there's a trial and error approach. Thomas, what do you think maybe are the distinctions in the approach to innovative work between China and Germany? You have mentioned, for instance, China is also very great in executing, right? But in terms of innovation, for example, maybe the first part, right? Ideas, the ideas part. Where do the Chinese get their ideas for innovation?
Where do the Chinese get the ideas for innovation? I think right now you have a pretty different environment in China that you had like 5 or 10 years ago, because right now you find also big corporates that are based in China, but they're doing international business. Like 5 or 10 years ago, you would go to China and you would find a partner that was only concentrated on the Chinese local market. They never thought about like expanding outside of China, because the country is so big. The market is big. There's enough opportunity to grow. But right now, and like in the past years, there are like big corporates that are also heavily involved outside of China. Let's take, for example, last week there was an announcement that Google is investing 550 million in cash into Qingdong.com, JD.com, which is a big e-commerce player in China. And what they are doing together is they're going to Europe and they're going to the US to do new digital retail store layouts for them. So I think the ideas for the Chinese companies, I think they are coming now because they're looking all over the world, like what is the stuff that is going on in the world. They're very well aware what is going on, what are the new technologies that are really will be the driving force. But I think for the Germans here, I would say China is probably not as scary as a business partner as it was before, because a lot of Chinese companies already have that experience doing projects with international partners. So I think this is also an opportunity. Maybe 10 years it was maybe too early to do some joint research or joint projects, but maybe now it is much easier. There is already big companies like SAP having a huge network in China that can help you to get to these right people to talk to. So I think the market is there, the potential is there, and there are some areas, I think, where maybe China is leading, but there are other areas, especially smart manufacturing, where China is still looking up to Germany and saying, hey, Jesus, how are you doing this? You know, we want to learn. We may be at industry 2.0, we want to go to 4.0. And then I think that's a big opportunity for German players to really help them get there, and really also where this German engineering approach is favorable.
Just to build on what Andrea talked about, where the inspiration comes from, I fully agree with what Torsten just shared just now in the last session. The inspiration actually comes from the problems. Me as an individual, like my life in Beijing, even though from my apartment to my working place, literally it was only 3 kilometers. If I drive in rush hour, it usually takes me like 1 hour. I could try subway, but for those who have visited Beijing and Shanghai for subway in rush hour, we have this special profession on the subway platform to push passengers inside the cabin. So subway was not a solution for any working ladies in China wearing a lot of high heels. I could try the mobike. You all know mobike, I'm sure, and I also saw O-bike and all the shared bikes in Berlin and Hamburg as well. But the only trick is that it's a little bit polluted. So I have to leave home at 8 o'clock. When I arrive on time at 9, then I need to pay, if I stay in the office for 10 hours, I need to pay about 15 euros for parking without doing anything. Then I need to go out to search for my lunch, which I only have 1 hour. And then I have to rush back quickly and to finish my work until evening, which I have no idea when it will end. Because sometimes it ends at 8, sometimes it's at 9. Or many for technical field, I think people like in Tmall, JD, or Tencent or DD, they can finish at 10 or 11 or something. So I really hope that, I have a cleaning lady, I have a cooking lady, I have a parking guy. And when I go out to social to have business dinner or fun for dinner or something, when I drink 2 beers or 2 glasses of wine, I could have a driver to drive me home. So that's all the dream life I have as an ordinary working individual in Beijing. So what my life was like before last year in 2017 is that every morning I give up driving. I call the DD taxi, or I call the DD share, or similar to a little bit like my taxi match, but it's owned by the private drivers. So I pay like just 2 or 3 euros for a free ride to the company, which I can use the 1 hour on the road to read the news or deal with the emails. And then for lunch, I can order online from the app called 3 meals a day, so that my breakfast will be delivered directly to the reception of my office. And then is my lunch. I skip the dinner because I don't know when I can have the dinner. So what I do is that before I left my office for home, I use my app again, which is a different one. Of course, there are hundreds of similar apps because it's a very young market. There are so many co-players and quick followers. So I usually use Baidu delivery or 大众点评, all kinds of food delivery service. So when I click what I want to order for dinner, and then I click what time I want my food to appear in front of my door, and then I click another taxi or free ride home, then when I'm right home, my food is there warm for me. About the cleaning lady, I can use another app. It's all in my mobile. You're free to check it out later. So I can also order what time and which place in my office for my clothes, or in my apartment for my bed linens or curtains, so that the cleaning lady can come over to pick it up and then return it to me in 2 days. And they are on around me 24 hours a day. So not to mention all these very convenient e-paying before Alipay was entered the Chinese market, and before Apple Pay entered the Chinese market, Alipay is everywhere. And I was surprised to see that even my parents in my hometown, which is not Beijing or Shanghai, big cities like that, is now buying grocery from the small supermarkets by scanning the code. So you can pay everywhere. Just imagine my life was, the first 3 months in Germany, was a little bit miserable because I always forgot to take the coins and notes. I always forgot to take my bus card, the bank card. Because all I can do in China is I take my mobile. And I still remember once I have in all my pocket only 6毛钱, it's a 6 cent RMB, which is less than 1 cent euro. I made a whole day trip from Beijing to Shanghai for a business meeting, paid my flight on mobile, paid my accommodation on the mobile, then called my taxi and pay my food. So that's my biggest adventure, and I would never ever try that in Germany. Maybe it's quite risky. So to answer where this inspiration comes from, it's because individuals have these problems. And another big problem I have is that we all do online shopping, but when to get the delivery is a big problem. I know Amazon may deliver on Saturday, but many other e-players don't deliver on Saturday. They don't deliver after 6, and they don't deliver before 8. So I really have difficulty, to ask for my boss permission again to say, I have this cat litter I have to have for my cat. Otherwise, I'm going to have a really weird apartment. So the same problem is solved in China by having I can also use an app. Yeah, it's an app life. So the app is called Fengchao. But in reality, you're gonna see a big cabin, a little bit like the counter bar over there, and they have a small something like the lockers at the train station. But what I can do is I can, for instance, if I order my cat litter online, then I can choose which day I want it delivered to which box of that Fengchao facility. So when I have time, I just go there, scan my code, and then the box with my staff opens. I can also use it opposite way. And so what this problem is not only solved, but I think what Fengchao does is to create a new marketing and sales channel as well. Just imagine how valuable or how the extra value this Fengchao creates for itself, not only for convenient delivery 24 hours, but also a huge channel reach directly to each individual customers. So inspiration, I think, comes from there is a need, there's problems that have to be solved, and luckily there is a ready environment where allows all these ideas to try to see how it works. I would say probably it's very hard to in Germany to put anything that big in the neighborhood. You probably need a signature for everyone, maybe.
Maybe just one comment on that. So I think the bottom line is because China has this 1.3 billion people, this massive growth of the economy over the last year. So there are some problems. So the inspiration for entrepreneurs comes from everyday problems, right? Here, I'm super busy. I don't know where to park my car. I need an app to help me somehow park the car. So if you're doing anything B2C in Germany and you're directly selling to the customer, then I would, yes, you should go Silicon Valley, check out there. But I think you should also go to China and see what is there, how did people solve it there? Because I think on the B2C side, I think China is maybe already like 5 years ahead in some areas where we can learn. Yes, there's a problem, there's language problems, culture is different, but I think this kind of seamless digital journey that you can see in China is something we can learn all from that. Yeah? There's not only payment, there's much more inside, integrated into these huge mega ecosystems. It takes time to understand them, but I think it's very valuable to learn from them and try to pick out some parts. Okay, what can we transfer to here? What works here in the local environment? So I think it's both sides. If you're industrial thing, everybody will look at Germany, how the Germans are doing it. Well, for B2C, I would say look to China, see what they are doing and see what you can transfer to Europe.
Yeah, thank you for sharing these insights. Thomas, you have already mentioned, I would say one point is like take a look on the B2C market, the big trends, right? But where do you see, I would say, opportunities, coming to opportunities in terms of a German-Chinese collaboration in innovation in future?
That's a good question, and I'm not sure if I'm the right person to answer this. I think right now, even these startups that we hear sometimes in the news, like Mobike was one example. So Mobike was recently sold for 3 billion to another huge conglomerate in China. And they will going to move outside of China. They are going to enter all these other markets, the secondary markets. For them, it's not the primary market. So I think there is on the one side opportunity to collaborate with these companies that go outside of China. On the other side, if you're in research or if you're in science, then it would also make sense to take a look into China, because China is now actively pushing research collaborations with leading universities here. So there are, I know, 3, 4, 5 different deals that were made where the Chinese government and the German government or German universities collaborate with them and they set up joint research facilities. And that goes as far as, okay, you're here in Germany, you have an idea, you have a research result, and you think that you can bring this to market, then let's do this together. We give you a team in China of researchers, we give you facility, we give you support from a local government, we give you access to where you can do a trial run, and then we try to bring this to the market. So there is a lot of opportunity, and the ones that I know as companies that go out of China that want to find local partners here, but also like in this core research, there is a lot of things going on right now where China has funding and they want to collaborate. And if you look at the number of published papers, I mean, that's always like questionable, because what is the quality of this paper and so on and so forth. China is already like, I think, #1 in the world in terms of like academic output. So there is a lot of good stuff coming from China. So also in research, there's a lot of collaboration. I think that will deepen. And the ones that are now starting to build these bridges, I think they will have access to this Chinese market in the future.
Xiaoxi, do you want to add some points? I think you're right now driving business, developing business for a German company with China. Can you give us maybe an outlook?
I think the collaboration opportunities are, as mentioned, the research opportunities for sure, because China also want to not only apply the existing technology, but also want to research for the future for the technology. And the other thing is, as Hube just mentioned, is Industry 4.0. So when we talk about Industry 4.0, oh no, in Germany it's not there yet. And in China, we are much lag behind. So this is a huge opportunity for collaboration. Whatever Germany has, any company, any product, any technology related to Industry 4.0, bring it to China. If you do it correctly, there will be huge opportunities. And again, this is driving by the Chinese government. So they want this happen, and this will happen. And the other thing is, of course, which Germany is also leading, is right now still leading, is autonomous driving. So this is also, I think US is also in this field. China want to be in this field and have already some research done, some prototype, and want to collaborate in this. And the third is electric cars. I think, to be honest, in electric cars, and China is now already leading. It's better than Germany, and vice versa. Maybe Germany can learn something for its electric vehicles from China. That's where I see the biggest opportunity potentials are.
Andreas, I think you have been in many innovative projects for a long time with the Chinese side. Can you maybe share us your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, in that context, also a couple of comments in terms of what you said earlier in terms of Chinese companies going global and basically partner. I mean, a very clear example from our side is the cooperation with Huawei. And I know this rather well because I was very much in the early stages involved when we started to work with them. And it's also, now I can say it's a bit internal, but basically, when we initially first thought, okay, we want to work with Huawei not only in China, but also outside China, because exactly this is what they want to do. Many people internally said, like, what as first, not that they cannot pronounce the name, but simply thought, oh, there's this Chinese technology company and they had some scandals here and there, and we don't know. I mean, you know, there are other companies, even here, big German companies in Munich who have similar scandals potentially, then we also shouldn't partner with them, basically. But joking aside, so basically the collaboration with Huawei was at the beginning pretty challenging because you see a different set of cultures. But we are now partnering with them, I think, around 6 years, and they became one of our key global technology partners. And they're becoming so ultra professional. It's really so great. Also, the talents they actually acquire, like foreign talents, basically, like in Germany and so on. It's really great to work with them and to really work on new business models. Opening jointly new markets. So this is, I think, a very developing joint new product. So really solutions which were not existing from our side before we worked with them together. So this is definitely a very good example of this collaboration. In the context, still again, also what you said around Industry 4.0, I also would again say there's an opportunity. And also in terms of research is another point, but in terms of Industry 4.0, well, we have to be careful because the thing is sometimes we are too proud of what we're having with Industry 4.0. And if you compare it to the Chinese pendant, which is Zhongguo Zhizhao, the Made in China 2025, they're actually seeing it much broader. So while we're talking on smart manufacturing, and unfortunately some people, especially in the government, are really very persistent and so on, let's focus on this one. The Chinese, as you also correctly said earlier, are much more flexible in terms of defining this. Another good example is also here and there broadly discussed Idailu, the Chinese One Belt One Road policy based on a strategy. It's also just basically it's a narrative. It's a great narrative, but it's not really defined. So they said, oh, we have like 68 or whatever, how many countries, but basically whoever wants to join can join, and we see now a trend that many countries actually want to join and get certain benefits potentially. So in all this context, I think there's a lot of opportunity. Again, as I said in the introduction, you just have to find the right spot, and also have to agree that, I mean, I was driving partner management, I think, in the early 2000s in China, and I tell you, it was scary times to work with Chinese partners. Sorry to say, it's really Jesus. But nowadays, it's really they come with business plans. Before you were like, what do we want from me? Business plan? Where we are just making friends, and then let's see where it goes. Yeah, exactly, and which is also a kind of cultural understanding. They want to bond first, and then there comes the business, which is, I think, one of the key issues in terms of Chinese-German collaboration. But nowadays they're ultra professional. Really, they're really good. They're prepared. They know what they want. And this is, and the last point I just want to mention on the scientific part in terms of collaboration. Very good example, I think. Waldorf, is in the area of Heidelberg. And in Heidelberg, they're just opening basically so-called Sino-German high-tech park, which is done by a very smart Chinese investor, basically. Very good. He studied in Heidelberg, and basically, if you know Heidelberg, they have this old US barracks, basically the army barracks. They're turning those now into investment areas for Chinese enterprises, exactly for this idea. They know they want foreign talents. They want to have the know-how, basically. Let's face it, it's like this. But basically, those people don't want to go to China. So basically, they take China to them. So I know that Huawei and those companies do have research centers here, but what they do, they're building really technology parks where actually the Chinese technology zones like Zhongguancun and so on, they're basically investing, bringing their companies over, really building a hub for innovation. And also German companies will be there. So for sure, you might say basically this is a kind of, I wouldn't say Chinese invasion in this way, but this trend is coming anyhow. So I think in this way it's best to see what are the ways where we can cooperate. And last comment also in terms of, especially because I'm based now in Berlin and do a lot with work with also German startups who have those questions like, oh, you know, what shall we do about China? I mean, the Chinese startups are coming to Germany, as you said, like many examples already, but the big advantage in China is for sure, if you simply look at a place like Shanghai, you have on the spot 22 million people. There's a market of 22 be very on a dense place. So basically, if you want to introduce a new idea, an app, whatever, you have a huge, market there. And with solutions like WeChat, you have a massive social media platform, which is comparable to nothing what we have here, to be honest. And basically can have an immediate reach. So I think lots of opportunities.
Thank you.
Just to follow up what Andreas said, like to be a little bit more specific, I'm myself is from a food and beverage industry, but I do see a lot of opportunities for cooperation between Germany and China because I know that Germany is leading in many approaches. But I do see China is quite leading in how to organize the resources, no matter whether it's about the policy or the environment or the fundraising. So to be a little bit specific, if you or your company or startup is in manufacturing or in medical and health, which is anti-aging is a big market in China right now because thanks to the big population, half are female. So these two are where China is always relying quite heavily to the other big trade partner or tech cooperation partner on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. So thanks to Americans' new policy, and we have seen in my industry that China is switching more and more to Europe for tech innovation. So if you are here in this like manufacturing, including automobile industry, or in medical and health, I do personally think there's big opportunities. And I know there are many agencies or consulting companies that work to bridge German tech and let's say China money and China market. So I think if you are here in these two industries, there might be a lot of opportunities as long as you have the right contact. And still, China is a very political market. Whatever the government is advocating, businesses will naturally follow.
Okay, thank you. Last question, very, very quick. Maybe just one sentence from each of you. What kind of new impulse or advice can you share to drive innovation with Germany or China?
Let's send all our kids for 1 year to China during their education.
I think it's important to watch what happens in China, but don't be afraid because Europe and Germany are still very, very, very much in front for technology, manufacturing, a lot of things. You're in front of China. So don't be afraid, open your arms and accept the culture, accept the way how the market works and collaborate together.
Make a trip to Beijing and Shanghai as fast as possible. Talk with those innovative people there.
Yeah, well, kind of the same. I think basically you have to be aware. China is definitely a global player and it's coming big time. Try to not see only the political side of this as much for sure going to China, talk to the Chinese companies here, exchange. There are many opportunities, especially in Berlin. Very smart people, I mean, smart people here for sure, exchange with them. But at the same time, be open, but try to stay ahead of, don't get complacent. I think this is the biggest danger, as I also said, Industry 4.0. Don't think like, oh, we have this, and on a political level, try to stop things by regulation. You need to face it. China's coming. China is there, coming even more, and we just have to see where our opportunities are. There are many.
Great, thank you. Daniel, do we have time for one question, maybe from the audience, if there's?
Because the food is already waiting outside. So you are between the food and yeah.
All right, I feel honored to have the only question I can ask right now. So I'm the founder of Nico, an eco-currency. So it's like a cryptocurrency, but a sustainable currency. And I see China as a big opportunity, also because people are far ahead in terms of mobile payment. You know, everyone wants to pay mobile in China, but here I get the questions, you know, do you also have coins? We want coins. It's like, oh God, coins. So I see the opportunity on one side, but I also see I have a concern about the involvement of the government. Because if the government in China wants something, you know, they will push for it. If they don't want it, like Facebook or other cryptocurrencies, they block them. So my question to you is, how would you deal with this? You know, we want to go there, we want to collaborate with the government, but we also have some of our own values which we want to bring in, like direct democracy. We have a direct contribution of all of our community who are controlling and regulating our currency. So how would you recommend that we approach China?
I think for that kind of blockchain topic, and I was involved in a lot of blockchain projects in China, the Chinese government was very clear. Like last year in 2017, very early, as one of the first governments in the world, they said, we stop all this like fundraising from private retail investors, which is here called like ICO, initial coin offering. So you cannot raise money from the general public. But if you want to do a technology project, the Chinese government is much more open to that, and they're also investing into that. And I personally believe, being a computer scientist by training, I have seen the most amazing tech teams being in China on the blockchain topic. Even if you talk to people from the Valley, they're saying, okay, the Valley totally is behind on the blockchain topic because we didn't get it for a long time, and now China is really pushing out the new technologies, and also because there's a lot of deep computer science research involved, and China is very strong on that because a lot of talent. Yeah, so I would say if you want to raise money in China from retail investors, no, the government will say no. If you want to collaborate on a technology basis, yes, it's a very good environment there. Yeah.
Okay, there was another question, but to be honest, as this short question was already pretty long, I would suggest, I think you will stay here around for some more time, so maybe you can talk to them directly. And for the rest of you, we have a lot of food out there, and yeah, we will make around 1 hour lunch break. So enjoy the food, and see you again back here in one hour. Yeah.